All right, boys and girls. It's another one of those quick installments of Julian's random projects. Today we're going to try and get this kiosk updated just before it goes out the door. I've got someone that's interested in buying it, and I've got a project that I've been procrastinating on for the channel here, which was to zhuzh up, if you will. Is that racist? I don't know. To add a little bit of brightness to this well-loved and used keypad. It's got some scuffs. It's got, through lots of use, there's some of the silk screening is rubbed off, and these things have actually begun to perish, as the Brits would say, and it's actually like more of a putty. Ugh. Like, I mean, lotions and oils and dirt and grime from people's little, fingers. It's the kind of stuff that just tears this stuff up over extended use. For you at home, probably not going to notice it, but just imagine the thousands and thousands of kids that have bellied up to this thing to check out the latest Nintendo game, and you get an idea what we got going on. So let's get this thing removed from here and its tether, and we'll take it to the bench. Now, you know we've been in business when we have to break out the blue mat. I anticipated there being lots of little screws and piece parts that we might be easily misplacing. So these things do a really great job of that. So if we remove this, let's set it aside. And you saw the RF connector here. A lot of people might be thinking, like, why would they, if it's tethered, if it's a direct connection, why are they still messing around with RF? It's the easiest way to keep from having to reinvent the wheel here. If they've already got a modem in here, a modulator, demodulator that takes the signal, whether it's Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, proprietary, whatever, if they've already got something that they mean to use for mass production, don't reinvent the wheel. If you're building one of these kiosks, go with what you have, but recognize that in a very congested store where there's lots of people visiting with their cell phones, the electronics in that electronics section of Walmart, Target, whatever, there is tons of RF. There's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and you name it, it's there. And so all of that would potentially get in between this head unit, or the controller, and the main Wii U that's tucked inside of a metal box in a lot of cases. You want to give those radio frequencies a fighting chance, and the best you can do is to directly wire, still use radio frequencies, but connect it physically to the antennas and do it that way. So to just have like the best, maybe even, almost overdriven signal, so nothing else is going to get in the way. It's always going to see that signal no matter what. So that's what we're looking at here today. I'm going to continue removing these. And I think it's outside the scope of this video here because it's just about the controller. But if you've got one of these kiosks yourself and you're having some connectivity issues, or your controller is super beat up and maybe even non-functional, a lot of them don't work, or somebody tried to replace or repair them, you can use a standard controller and actually sync it to the kiosk one. There's not a lot that's special about this. Actually, I hope when we get into here, we discover that this is, aside from some slight modifications, is a bog standard from the factory controller. But if you go the route of replacing a new one, or you put a retail unit into your kiosk unit just to use the HDMI display and kind of rock your own thing, and you're not worried about the kioskiness of it, if you're going to use the original Wii U that it came with, it has an SMA RF connector on the back side to connect this directly. If you just get an SMA antenna, like one of these, and plug this into the back of the Wii U, a stock controller will be able to then communicate over the air with it. But you got to give it this little aerial to kick up behind it. It doesn't, it would be a short one, long one, whatever. But that's what you need to do if you're going to use the original kiosk console. All right, let's, I see they kept the tri-wings. Let me go grab a tri-wing screwdriver. Oh my goodness. I've got like 10 or 12 of these things floating around and I couldn't find a single one. These things are very helpful if you're getting into Nintendo handhelds, or I think there's some, even their the cartridges for a lot of that stuff use a tri-wing. It's their attempt to limit who's going to mess with this. Instead of your cousin who's got a cool trick that he can do with them and taking it apart, they want it to be like service centers and that kind of a thing. So you just change the bit from being a standard Phillips or Torx bit to this proprietary, but they've been using it so long, it's basically like the Nintendo bit. I'll put a link down in the description if I can shill my Amazon affiliate links for a second. I'll put a link down there so that you guys can get one of these sets. Just grab one that comes with like some plastic prying tools, or maybe one that has the tri-tip and the bit that gets you into Super Nintendos and GameCubes. That could also be helpful. If you guys are taking apart stuff like this at home and it's not quite coming, be mindful of screws that are hidden underneath stickers like this. It's a great place to hide screws. Oh yeah, very grody, lots of use. All right, so for those grody thumbsticks there, I got some of those, and then the best replacement from the Sweet Rock Candy Mountain you call China would be a complete shell swap. Oh yeah, gonna get this thing looking really fresh. Let's start swapping things over. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these types of connectors. They're called ZIF, Zero Insertion Force connectors. So instead of somebody having to like seat a connector, they got so tiny, and even the seating was damaging them in factories. So the Japanese developed a little ribbon cable. You guys recognize this, and tons of electronics. The idea is it's laid in there, bottoms out of the bottom of the connector, and then you close the door on it so that's the force comes after the insertion, so zero insertion force. And that's the name of the game. When you're buying stuff like this from China or just different distributors, it's not clear whether it's like a third shift or a complete replica of this. It seems like something I don't know that somebody would have taken the time to replicate this. I don't, especially with the Wii U. Switches, sure. But the Wii U, there wasn't many of these made. So it's more likely that these were factory overruns, or there was a manufacturer that made this exact piece part for Nintendo. And then when Nintendo said, hey, we're not making these anymore, please destroy these, they said, oh yeah, roger that, sure, we'll destroy the shit out of those. And they get sent off to a warehouse somewhere and sold. And so eventually somebody gets them and is using them for replacement parts, and they've got pallets and pallets of these things. There's some attention to detail, like these little pads on the side to help hold in our touch and LCD screen. There are little dust covers for the speakers here that are already adhered and glued into place. These are the types of things that if you're making a replica for the for these retro, not quite there yet, but some of these gaming consoles, to get them back into commission, you're not attending to those details normally. You're just cranking this out and like saying, yes, best price, eBay, here's your replacement case for your Switch, for your Game Boy, whatever. So unless you're a reputable company that's decided to kind of re-engineer a replacement that has some quality of life improvements, you're not getting this. So my guess is this is 100% authentic OEM replacement screen for this, or not screen, but so use replacement screens, a replacement shell, I should say. So let's continue. All right, one of our first major pieces is going to get replaced here. You can see the difference in grodiness. Even on the underside, oh my God. Ugh, makes me want to throw up. Good luck cleaning all that out. Better just to replace it. So there's our OEM replacement. And I fumbled around in my drawer. I also have this one. It's a bit grippier. I like the feeling of this. If I was going to be playing this all the time, or if I've got another Wii U controller that needs new knobs, I'm definitely going to go with this one. But for this, I want to go with the OEM look, so I'm going to stick with this guy here. So I'll set these aside here. Get all the dust out of this thing. Kind of check it for serviceability since we're here. You guys let me know down in the comment section if you like some of this longer form stuff. So not as handsome as Ben Heck or let's see, like a Big Clive. So I try to make up for that in brevity where I can. So I'll be editing big chunks of where we swap stuff over, but you guys get the idea. It's basically remove something, move it to the new chassis. If something's the thing you're going to replace, clean it up and go ahead and replace it since you're in there and just move on. So, all right, the time has come for the other tip. If you're looking to improve the responsiveness or the buttons, or you have a faulty button, especially the ones that are not click, like tactile tick 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 buttons, but pressing up against a membrane. This is that membrane they talk about for membrane buttons. These are mass-produced little pucks of plastic that are either doped or glued to a piece of doped with graphite or glued to a piece of graphite or a conductive material here, and that presses up against often copper pads, or in this case a cost-reduced much thinner ribbon cable. So you can see here that those little lines that are evident on there come from pressing up against those, and those both sides can get oxidated over time, and that oxidation builds up and it's less conductive or not conductive, and that's where you get buttons that don't work unless you really mash on them, or they don't work at all, and that controller's out. So a lot of people will clean this side, which is fine, but I don't have as many problems with this side as I do the membrane itself. And in this case, I don't want to do too much cleaning because these are look at the blue material here, that this PCB material that it's holding onto, very, very thin. And so there's not a lot of connectivity, or, there's not a lot of material there to clean. And in cleaning it, you might scrape away or wipe away enough of it to damage it or damage a trace or something. There's a little bit of built-in redundancy, but not much. So when they're copper, if they're oxidized, or they were supposed to be copper or gold color and they're green, sure, clean that up. But when they're nice like this, I'm going to leave these be. And I'm going to clean these. And the simplest way to clean these, not with a bunch of chemicals or anything like that, is just to take off a tiny amount with the softest sandpaper I have around, a Post-it note, and you just press it on and drag it like you're drawing a pencil. Drawing with a pencil here. Pencil. Now you see the difference between the shiny ones and now that dull one? Shiny, dull, or duller. And you just work your way around, do all four. I forget who taught me this, but now it's the Julian taught me trick, and it's worked a treat all these years. Look at those, ready to go, all freshened up. All right, you guys want to see something interesting, something you don't need if you've got the kiosk unit, and that's a power button. This thing should be on all the time, making that money. Normally, it would be pressing on a tactile switch for the TV button and the power button, and in this one, you get the TV button, switch number 15, but switch 13, the power button, has been no-stuffed, deleted, whatever you want to call it, at the factory, and little bodge wires have been connected to bring the ability to power cycle back out to our Cool Guy daughter card over here. One of the differences between a kiosk unit and a retail unit, right there. If you're watching this channel, surely by now you know the little trick with setting some of these screws into plastic, especially the ones that you've already taken apart, or there was already a screw in that place, which is to go counterclockwise until you feel a little bit of a thud, then roll it forward. That thud is letting you know that you are now into the beginnings of the threads that were there previously. That'll keep you from tearing new threads into the plastic, which is very doable. It was what was done in the factory. Those were just plastic tubes from the injection molding. And the very first time this thing met a screw, it was reamed out with that screw. So don't go reaming new holes. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. All right. Dang it, I already forgot how this went in here. Let's see, probably like that. Oh yeah, button would probably be on top. Oh yeah, there we go. Like a glove. I forget the name of these little connectors. I want to say UFL, but that can't be right. I think it was white black, gray, question mark? I don't know. Why don't you guys scroll back to the beginning of the video and let me know. Come back and tell me. I think that's as good as it gets. It's going into some kind of a muxer here. I just realized to get it to the one antenna back up to the console. So I think we're good to go. This thing deserves a good scrub. Let me go scrub this off and we'll get this buttoned up, and I'll meet you back over at the kiosk. All right. It's that moment of truth to see if I've forgotten any buttons or knobs or anything. Look intact. BA, YX, those look right. I don't know. Alright, sorry about the fan noise, but it's what you gotta deal with with these kiosks. If you're gonna install this in your house, you'd put a little potentiometer on that, or go with a quieter fan. But in a big store, no one's gonna know the difference. So I had forgotten, because I hadn't played this in a while, I had associated, after doing the cool antenna trick, the Wi-Fi antenna that we talked about before, to the back of the kiosk. I was using a production controller so that I could sit here and play games and have a gale time. And the way I did that was I got into a debug menu, and some of the instructions online are the debug menu can be entered by putting in a special SD card that has some stuff on it. And while there are special formatted SD cards floating around that came with different updates for the employees at a store to flash new OSs to this thing, new operating systems, or install new games. And so you can get those on eBay. They're floating around here and there. I discovered through trial and error, and also trying to fix an earlier kiosk that had no video out, I discovered that any old SD card put in a kiosk will bring you to this menu. And it lets you do some pretty powerful stuff, like set the region for the whole thing, languages, of course, and the region is like legit, like it sticks with the console. You can also, there's some stuff in here to, it's buried in here in the settings. There's also a way to re-region the controller, and I've done that. I took some Japanese controllers and I switched them to be US, or like it helped me with some of the processes to take a Japanese console and gamepad and be able to use them with US games, kind of making them region free. I might do a video on that later once I really understand it myself. And also, I'm not convinced that it's permanent, so or that all games work. I need to do some more research before I have people, futzing around. You have to jailbreak it, and you have to go in and make some pretty abrupt changes. And some of them are not reversible, and some of them are a big pain in the butt. So anyways, so now that we're in here, I should be able to go to, I paired a Wiimote because it doesn't know anything about this one. And those guys are plugged in through a different connection, and so they're not hot right now or working. They might not even be physically connected. I go take, oh, that's right. Those go to a USB adapter, and then the USB adapter, so that they don't have batteries, it powers them and then also converts it to USB in the back. And so they're wired again to keep the RF communications rock solid. They're actually they show up as like a HID device to this thing, a human interface device, and they weren't working, so I had to go double check and see those. But I knew I could pair a regular old Wiimote just by pressing the buttons in the front and pressing pair. So we want to pair gamepad, and that's what we're gonna do. Starting the process. What about you? Bueller? Mom? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, it's the next day. So I think it was either something to do with the little muxing. There's inside the reason we couldn't connect earlier was that I either messed up the connections for a muxing circuit that takes the Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and all that stuff and routes it into one. In the RF world, it would be called a multiplexer. Sorry, not a muxer, but it allows those all to come onto one antenna cable, like probably has some low pass, high pass filters and that kind of stuff. So I think I got them on the wrong connection, or when I was messing around with that, I reseated the Wi-Fi card and now it's working a treat. So at least the state of this thing, I'm not changing anything. If it works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what they say. So cool. So we paired that. Let's go to, we want exit to kiosk. Remove the SD card. This is just a blank, well, properly formatted, but just a blank SD card. There's no special files on this thing. We talked about that earlier. Okay, I'm gonna set that aside. Confirm that we've done that, and she's off. There it is. So we can go through. Some of these are just trailers. Oh boy, I just realized all the copyright striking we're gonna get. I might have to, maybe you bought one of these. Maybe the guy that bought this one. Underneath here, you gotta reach up underneath and start to kind of memorize what they are. You've got volume up and volume down, buttons to select different HDMI inputs. I think there's 2 on this one, or maybe some analog stuff, so you can actually toggle between those, and then there's a power button. So let's turn this all the way down. There we go. To like reduce the chances of a copyright strike. All right, now we got that thing squared away. We can put back our plexiglass thing. And look at this. They thought about this to keep this all tight so that folks don't go yanking this thing off. This sits inside of that, and then when the cabinet is locked, this can't be slid out this way. Like I said, some of these are just trailers, and then some of them are the actual game. And this is what you'd be updating if you had a different SD card. Different promotions and stuff going on that they would add on here. And I don't know if it's additive or if it would replace all these with another set. I just do not know. We don't know a lot about the installs that were on here. There's been a couple of dumps. I didn't want to I didn't want to brick this. That's the short answer. So I haven't tried any of the dumps that have come out, but I'm thinking about buying another. Some people were just selling the kiosk console. You'll be able to spot it because different than a bog standard one, it's got all these extra plugs and an RF connection. Basically, just look for anything. If you're looking online, the fact that it's got this silver plate here means that it's a kiosk Wii U. So there's folks that are selling just this, and there's other folks that are selling just this, maybe with the cable dangling out of it and severed. You can get one of those and get it up and running, especially the one where somebody's taken a pair of dikes and or wire cutters and cut that off. Inside, on the other side of this, the only thing that this is doing is carrying power into here and the RF. And so you could add, a retail one of these to a kiosk one of these, as long as you give it battery power, and then there's a power cord back here that goes into that little dev circuit board. You can bring that up and sort of route it around here and plug it in here for charging. So you have a battery in here just like you would normally, charges off to the side, and then it uses its regular antennas. And then like I said, like I mentioned earlier, instead of using the attached cable to keep it tethered, you would just put an antenna, a Wi-Fi antenna, on the back of this, and it'll talk to it just fine. So you can actually build, do kind of a DIY kiosk mode if you could find the actual kiosk console. Everything else after that is all bog standard Nintendo stuff. The power cords, HDMI out, it's all the same stuff. So you can skip that. Even the sensor bar is standard, and it's molded in here, but you could just have yours at the house or wherever. So cool, let's launch our favorite. Boy howdy. Oh man, that would be so much nicer with the audio. But alas, we live in a litigious world, my friends. So you'll have to settle with this. If you guys have enjoyed seeing me get this thing up and running, and you want to see future kiosks, fun, unique video game things, make sure you subscribe to Julian's Random Projects.
I'm hanging in, there ain't no doubt, and I'm hanging tough. Over and out, over and out, over and out.